Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our study of love. Um, Last time we went over 1 Corinthians 13. Now we're going to break it down a little further into its different parts. If you remember earlier in the introduction, I said one of my preferred ways to do a Bible study is if the Bible tells me one thing, I look for three instances that go with it to give me clarification, to make sure it's saying what I think it says. Because if I can't get three things that agree with it, then that most likely means I'm misunderstanding something. It doesn't say what I think it says. So that is the process I use. So that being said, the very first line is love is patient. Now we're going to go to Galatians chapter 6, verses 7 through 10, and this is from the NLT, which is the New Living Translation. Don't be misled. You cannot mock the justice of God. You will always harvest what you plant. Those who live only to satisfy their own sinful nature will harvest decay and death from that sinful nature. But those who live to please the Spirit will harvest everlasting life from the Spirit. So let's not get tired of doing what is good. At just the right time, we will reap a harvest of blessing if we don't give up. Therefore, whenever we have the opportunity, we should do good to everyone, especially to those in the family of faith. All right. So this passage teaches us that we get out of life what we put into it. If we show hatred, then we're going to get hatred in return. But if we show love, then we'll get love back. However, this is not an instantaneous event. The rewards come in due time. Often people lose sight of the benefits when the process is slow. They opt for the quicker and easier outcome. But this often costs from the end result. Yes, it yields quicker results, but not as good as if we had patience. One thing the devil deals in is instant gratification. That's to distract us from our trusting and having patience on God. It also tells us that we should do good for all whenever possible. The more good we put out, the more good we will receive back in the end. We simply have to have patience and endure everything that comes in between without losing sight of our goals. If you want to have a community, that's part of it. All right, so our next passage that goes with patience is Ephesians chapter 4, verses 2 and 3. And this is from the Christian Standard Bible, CSB. With all humility and gentleness, with patience, bearing with one another in love, making every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace. Right? And to go along with that is Romans chapter 5, verses 3 through 5, and this is from the ESV, the English Standard Version. Not only that, but we rejoice in our sufferings, knowing that suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and character produces hope, and hope does not put us to shame. So, basically what these are teaching us is that we should appreciate the trials that we go through in life. When we go through these trials, it gives us patience, and that patience makes us better people, and therefore gives us and those around us hope. It's all a domino effect. Hope is a good thing to have. Now we're going to go to James chapter 1, verses 2 through 4, and this is the MEV, which is the Modern English Version. My brothers, count it all joy when you fall into diverse temptations, knowing that the trying of your faith develops patience. But let patience perfect its work, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing. This passage reiterates the previous ones we just studied, but also takes it a step further. Many times we become impatient and act impulsively, but we're not yet prepared for whatever that impulse produces. If we're patient, we'll be ready for things when the time arrives for them. Patience makes us complete as a person and makes sure we have all we need. I'm going to interject here a little side note. I mentioned it in a different place in the book. When you see the word perfect in the Bible, it does not mean perfect as in flawless, although that is some of the term. Mainly, though, it means complete, fully matured. That's just for context. Now, still in the book of James, we're going to go to chapter 5 now, verses 7 through 12, and this is the New King James Version, NKJV. Therefore, be patient, brethren, until the coming of the Lord. See how the farmer waits for the precious fruit of the earth, waiting patiently for it until it receives the early and latter rain. You also be patient. Establish your hearts, for the coming of the Lord is at hand. Do not grumble, complain against one another, brethren, lest you be condemned. Behold, the judge is standing at the door. My brethren, take the prophets who spoke in the name of the Lord as an example of suffering and patience. Indeed, we count them blessed who endure. You have heard of the perseverance of Job, and seen the end intended by the Lord, that the Lord is very compassionate and merciful. But above all, my brethren, do not swear, either by heaven or by earth, or with any other oath, but let your yes be yes, and your no, no, lest you fall into judgment. I like there that there's the reference to the story of Job. If you want to do a little side study, go read the book of Job. It's a really good story, really good focus on integrity. It really is an inspiration to see just what integrity can do for somebody. What it can shape their character into. But anyway, going back to breaking down what I just read. This passage is an excellent source of information on showing love. First, it tells us to be patient and explains that good things come to those who wait. It tells us to take the time necessary to establish your hearts, which means to strengthen ourselves in our convictions. It tells us not to complain about one another, which is another way to show patience. It gives examples of people with great patience by referring to the prophets of old. Finally, it tells us not to make false promises or promises that are out of our control. We should speak plainly and honestly to each other. I say all the time, say what you mean and mean what you say. If you want to get through life, follow that rule. Be authentic. That's part of the golden rule. Treat others how you would be treated, want to be treated. You want to be told the truth, tell others the truth. Right, so the questions for reflection on this section. Question number 4. Have you ever experienced this kind of patience from others? Question 5. Are you able to offer this kind of patience to others? And question 6. Are you able to pause in the heat of emotion and reflect in order to develop greater patience, both for yourself and others? Told you some of these were going to be some... You're not going to like me very much at the end of this, but you'll know yourself a lot better. All right, and that's it for this part. See you in the next one.